everyone, and welcome to another PokeAmino VGC Clan Wars exhibition match. My name is Raden, LMGRaden, and I'm joined by my good friend and co-commentator, Remington, LMGRemington, who also is wearing a hat.
I've been sick for a few days, and it's really hard to get your hair to go back to like it was when you don't brush it. And you would have known I was sick yesterday if Raden hadn't not hit the record button on the Yeti, so we're having to re-record this. So, yeah, it's really your fault that I'm wearing a hat right now.
And whatever, backwards hat boy. In any case, as you mentioned, Remington, this is post-com, but we're going to be doing it as similar to live as possible. Let us know if you like this method better or worse than the method we did last week, which was actually live. In any case, we have got an amazing match lined up for you. We have Nightlight 26 versus Dunga. And both of these are interesting players. Dunga has been playing VGC since around 2014, and he's gotten very good at it. He did go to San Jose Regionals where he went 5-3, but lately he has been taking a break from VGC and instead has been playing a lot more doubles OU. Meanwhile, Nightlight is quite honestly a world's caliber player in a literal sense, since he was invited to the Pokemon Video Game World Championships in San Francisco this past year as a senior. So, obviously we've got two, you'd say pretty good players, right, Rem?
Yeah, I mean, above average, maybe up to our level, maybe.
In any case, we're going to get right into teams right now. Nightlight's team is your classic Arcanine, Tapu Fini, Kartana core, along with Mandibuzz, Garchomp, and Snorlax. Meanwhile, Dunga has a more interesting team of Snorlax, Porygon 2, Hariyama, Mimikyu, Tapu Fini, and Arcanine.
Yeah, so Dunga's team is gonna basically live or die by that Trick Room. A lot of his team actually has negative speed natures, in addition to actually having a lot of plus either defense or special defense natures. So he's really like kind of a bulky team that needs to have Trick Room in order to be offensive as well. He also has a lot of HP recovery focus and or boosting its defenses. So for example, that Snorlax is going to be running that Figgy Berry. That I believe the Tapu Fini has leftovers, and just that I believe the Hariyama does have an Assault Vest, which just isn't it.
Like you mentioned, a lot of natural bulk on Dunga's team designed to take advantage of that Trick Room. So Dunga's plan really is going to be get Trick Room up as soon as possible and just sweep from within. Meanwhile, Nightlight's kind of got the opposite going on. I mean, he's got very fast Pokemon. Kartana, currently one of the fastest Pokemon in the game. Same with Garchomp, and to an extent, Arcanine is pretty fast. Of course, he does have that Snorlax in case Trick Room goes up, but, I mean, you're looking at his team, at Nightlight's team, and he really does not want to see Trick Room. So if Dunga can get Trick Room set up, then we easily have the ability to see Dunga pull ahead of Nightlight.
And Nightlight's one of his possible MVP Pokemon could be that Mandibuzz, because it actually does run Taunt, and since Dunga only has one Pokemon with Trick Room, which would be the Porygon 2, if that Porygon 2 is unable to set up a Trick Room, then nothing else on Dunga's side will be able to. So that Taunt on that Mandibuzz could really put a halting to Dunga's strategy if Nightlight chooses to bring it.
Indeed. Sorry guys, give me a sec. In any case, like you said, Mandibuzz is certainly going to be a Pokemon that Dunga really has to be careful of. In any case, I think we're about ready to get into these games. So here we go. Here we are, guys. Game 1 of Dunga versus Nightlight. We've already mentioned that Nightlight's really going to want to bring that Mandibuzz, but Something that we did not mention is that Porygon 2 is probably going to be a likely lead from Dunga. I think that's safe to assume. Try and get that Trick Room up.
Yeah, and another interesting thing about Dunga's team, that Mimikyu actually is the exact opposite of what most of his other Pokemon are, in the fact that it's max speed and really likes to run outside of Trick Room rather than in.
Yeah, and that Mimikyu, instead of running Trick Room, it is running Swords Dance and Protect. Protect, not a move you see all too often on Mimikyu thanks to its disguise. And Swords Dance, obviously, once it gets a Swords Dance off, that Ghostium Z never-ending nightmare is gonna be dealing some big damage. Here we go with Game 1. Dunga sends out Porygon and Tapu Fini to face off against Nightlight's Mandibuzz and Snorlax. So you can see right there, Tapu Fini gets the Misty Train off as Mandibuzz gets its Misty Seed boost, courtesy of Tapu Fini's Misty Train.
Yeah, so Nightlight really letting Dunga do his work for them right there with that special defense boost. However, that Tapu Fini does serve a threat to that Mandibuzz.
Mandibuzz doesn't like seeing the Tapu Fini gonna switch out for Kartana as Porygon switches for the Arcanine. Snorlax is gonna use a Curse, drop its speed, and set its attack back to normal after the Arcanine Intimidate and boost its defense.
Yeah, Snorlax might have been anticipating a Trick Room there in order to getting that Curse up in order to get even faster. Excuse me, guys. And luckily for that Kartana, that Trick Room did not get set up, but also equally as unlucky, that Arcanine is out there, so really any Fire-type attack will destroy that Kartana.
In addition, that Kartana does have the attack drop, so probably not going to stay out there a while. Tapu Fini now sitting at +1 special attack and special defense thanks to that Calm Mind. Definitely going to serve to be a bit interesting as the game progresses.
Yeah, don't know how much that special defense raise helps it, but definitely that special attack boost with getting those Moonblasts off. As we see the players taking their time on this turn, probably thinking out their strategy, although I would definitely imagine the Kartana switching out, as Raden said.
And you're right, it does switch out for the Tapu Fini. Arcanine fires a flamethrower into the Snorlax. Moonblast doubles into the Snorlax, triggering its Figgy Berry, bringing Snorlax back to around health. Snorlax fires a high horsepower into Arcanine, gonna bring that to around half, and Arcanine restores back up with the Citrus Berry.
Yeah, so with a Citrus Berry, the high horsepower is a 3-hit KO.
We see the Porygon come back in, get the special attack boost this time. Nightlight fires off a Muddy Water, gets onto both Tapu Fini. Dunga gets a Calm Mind up, and Snorlax returns into the P2.
Yeah, that P2 really is taking Snorlax's attacks pretty well, and Dunga getting those Calm Minds up. That is, he's really trying to get that offensive power up, as well as that special defense to handle that Tapu Fini on the opposite side of the field.
Indeed. Nightlight firing a Moonblast into Dunga's Tapu Fini does get the special attack drop. Dunga fires his own Moonblast into Snorlax. Porygon 2 recovers, and Snorlax uses Recycle. So this kind of shows Dunga that this Snorlax is not running Protect, because we have seen Curse, High Horsepower, Return, and Recycle. Thunderbolt goes out into the Tapu Fini. Snorlax's return deals around a third to Dunga's Tapu Fini. And with both Tapu Fini at boosted, the Snorlax has a defense boost, the Porygon has a special attack boost. You've got a lot of boosted Pokemon on this side of the field. Yeah,
unfortunately that Moonblast didn't do a super amount to that Snorlax, and that Moonblast got a special attack lower on Dunga's Tapu Fini.
Yep, well, Arcanine switches back out for Porygon 2. Tapu Fini fires Moonblast into Dunga's Tapu Fini. Gets another special attack drop, so yeah.
Those Calm Minds are really not coming to fruition since Tapu Fini's got 2 Moonblast special attack drops onto Dunga's Tapu Fini.
Yeah.
And Snorlax is still standing there bulky as ever.
Indeed. And, I mean, that speed drop is really hindering Dunga's ability to try and set up Trick Room. Arcanine going for a helping hand onto Tapu Fini as it goes down to a Tapu Fini Muddy Water. Accuracy drop. The Moonblast misses the Snorlax as Snorlax takes out Tapu Fini with the return.
Yeah, I do believe that Moonblast would have taken it out if it hadn't missed. That Muddy Water lower accuracy was a huge break for Nightlight.
As we see the Porygon 2 Hariyama as the last two Pokemon for Dunga to try and take this game. Porygon unfortunately getting the attack boost, so not going to help Porygon too much in this game. Hariyama survives the Moonblast with just a little bit of HP as it goes for a close combat, taking out the Snorlax.
Yeah, unfortunately the game has pretty much decided that knockout only just make sure it wasn't a 4-0 victory for Nightlight.
Indeed. Kartana goes for a Smart Strike onto Hariyama, taking it out and getting Beast Boost to Tapu Fini. Goes for a Moonblast on Porygon 2. Ice Beam deals around a third to Kartana, showing that it is in fact the Assault Vest set as opposed to the Focus Sash set. Sacred Sword and Moonblast do take out the Porygon 2, and that is going to be game 1 in favor of Nightlight.
Yeah, that Ice Beam damage calc is definitely helpful for Dunga to know in the future. That way he knows that even if he does get an Ice Beam, it's not a 2-hit KO and can't rely on that 2 turns in a row.
Indeed. In addition, he got some useful information. He knows for sure that the Mandibuzz is a Misty Seed set. He knows that Tapu Fini is a Calm Mind set. He knows the Snorlax is not running Protect, and that's going to be incredibly helpful to him later in the game.
Unfortunately for Dunga there, he did get up a lot of Calm Minds, which Nightlight really wasn't applying that much offensive pressure to, but it really just kind of fell apart with those Moonblasts lowering its attack power and then that Muddy Water. So not necessarily what you would think a 3-1 victory would be in terms of good playing for Dunga. Just kind of a lot of unlucky breaks and hacks that game.
Yeah, of course, Nightlight did also get into a position where those Calm Mind boosts didn't really mean a whole lot when playing against Dunga.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw that he just completely disregarded the Tapu Fini once it started boosting, and that really just made Tapu Fini later on in the game a bit of a sitting duck, and then it just came to the point where it just couldn't take the damage, and...
You're right, and especially since not really anything on the opposing team besides that Tapu Fini was special, that special defense raise really didn't do that much.
Well, we're going to get into Game 2, and we see the Mimikyu Hariyama lead for Dunga against the Kartana Tapu Fini lead from Nightlight.
So Hariyama is definitely threatened by that Tapu Fini. Probably going to see that Swords Dance by that Mimikyu in order to get that up before its disguise is broken.
Indeed, of course, Hariyama exerting fake-out pressure on both the Tapu Fini and especially that Kartana, since it is an Assault Vest Kartana.
Yeah, we might see that fake out just on that Tapu Fini, so it can't hit that Hariyama with Moonblast, maybe just get a little bit of damage off of it.
Instead, we're going to see the Porygon 2 switch in and get the special attack boost. Kartana goes for a Smart Strike as Hariyama doesn't go for a fake out that turn, which is interesting to say the least. Mimikyu comes back in as Hariyama fell to a Moonblast.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder why he didn't fake out that Tapu Fini, because, yeah.
Kartana Night slashing the Mimikyu, breaking its disguise. Mimikyu gets the Swords Dance up. Moonblast goes into the Mimikyu, dealing around 2/3 as Porygon 2 gets up the Trick Room.
That was interesting, because I don't believe that Mimikyu is slower than that Tapu Fini, so Trick Room might not have been the best play.
Of course, Porygon 2 gonna be the first thing to move, gets a Thunderbolt and deals well over half to Tapu Fini. Mimikyu saves itself for another turn, which is gonna be big because that means that if Porygon 2 can knock out this Tapu Fini, then Mimikyu could potentially pick up a knockout onto Kartana. Porygon does get a Thunderbolt onto the Tapu Fini, KOing it, as Mimikyu goes for a never-ending Nightmare, and that is a one-hit KO on the Kartana, as Snorlax and Garchomp are the last two Pokemon for Nightlight.
Yeah, if Mimikyu can get an attack off into that Garchomp goes down instantly, unless that Snorlax is able to prevent that by causing it to faint. But that was an excellent turn for Dunga.
Indeed. Of course, Porygon 2, usually carrying Ice Beam, also pressures that Garchomp, as unless the Garchomp is Assault Vest, which the Kartana was revealed to be the Assault Vest Pokemon, that means that Porygon can easily pick up the K on the Garchomp, and that just leaves an easy situation. Garchomp does protect, as Mimikyu feints to a critical hit high horsepower from Snorlax, and Porygon 2 recovers. And
yeah, that critical hit might have mattered there. I'm not exactly sure on the damage calcs, but I'm not even sure if that would have knocked it out, so Dunga's just really getting unlucky these games.
Yeah, of course, Dunga is still in a very manageable position, as Tapu Fini is revealed to be his last Pokemon, and that is certainly a very manageable position to take on a Garchomp and a Snorlax with a Porygon 2 and a Tapu Fini. Snorlax going for a return onto the Tapu Fini deals around a third. Garchomp goes down instantly to Porygon 2's Ice Beam, as Tapu Fini gets up a Calm Mind and restores health with its leftovers.
Yeah, so Porygon 2 probably, as the Trick Room ends, which is actually really good for Uber Dunga, probably not going to set up anymore.
Yep. And now all Dunga has to do is just attack into the Snorlax. Thunderbolt and Moonblast got it under half, triggering the Figgy Berry. Return took Porygon 2 down about a third of its health, as Nightlight does go for the forfeit. So we're going to go ahead and get into Game 3 soon enough between Dunga and Nightlight.
Yeah, that was definitely a lot better played game for Dunga. He was really able to get rid of that Kartana, which last game has really troubled him. Even though that he had Arcanine on his team, it getting knocked out really early really affected his ability to take it out, and it basically kind of just helped roll through his entire team.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that was just all around a good game for Dunga. He was really able to capitalize on his Trick Room, and I mean, you just saw right there, guys, Nightlight doesn't have a great Trick Room. He can stall out Trick Room, he can bring Snorlax, but aside from that, there's not a whole lot else he can do.
Yeah,
if Snorlax is reduced to the last Pokemon on Nightlight's side, it can't do a whole lot once that Trick Room ends.
Yeah, I mean, that Kartana and Garchomp are just ridiculously weak in Trick Room, especially if they have things that are 4 times super effective against it. Like, that Kartana is not a bulky Pokemon at all. Garchomp does have actually a fair amount of bulk, but it definitely can't handle an Ice Beam.
Indeed. So I expect to see Nightlight revert back to something like what he started with bringing the Mandibuzz out turn 1. Meanwhile, I expect to see Dunga try and pivot to kind of a Hariyama Porygon 2 lead. Simply
set up that Trick Room.
Yeah.
That Trick Room does prove that Nightlight's team, as Raden said, is not well equipped for it. So even if Dunga doesn't think he especially needs it, it's a real good counter for Nightlight's team.
Indeed. We're going to get into Game 3 as Mimikyu and Tapu Fini are the leads from Dunga against Nightlight's Mandibuzz Kartana. Mandibuzz once again gets the Misty Seed special defense boost.
And again, that Kartana proving an issue, because it actually can take care of both Mimikyu and Tapu Fini fairly easily, while Mimikyu and Tapu Fini apply a lot of offensive pressure towards that Mandibuzz.
Indeed. Even then, Mandibuzz threatens Mimikyu with a taunt, threatens Tapu Fini with a taunt, so Dunga really has to go on the offense this turn.
Yeah, honestly, would not be surprised to see that Ghost TMZ go directly on that Kartana just to deal a lot of damage and hopefully get it off the field for Dunga.
Indeed.
And the players are taking their time.
Yeah, once again, this is quite an important turn for both players. Especially Nightlight. One wrong prediction of who's gonna use the boosting move and who's gonna attack. That could be a huge difference between how this game flows and who picks up what knockout when.
Yeah, I feel like if this Kartana doesn't get a lot of damage on this first turn, that might be the game, honestly, already. I don't want to over-predict, but that Kartana seems like it's too effective against Dunga's team.
Kartana does go for a Leaf Blade onto Tapu Fini, gets well over half. Mandibuzz survives both a Play Rough and a Moonblast, just barely holding on. But
there's that
little
Misty
bit of
Seed
is so important.
That Misty Seed, yeah, that Moonblast just not having enough to take it out, and next turn that Tapu Fini is gone. In addition, that Mimikyu can't Swords Dance anymore or Protect, so we might see a switch from that Mimikyu, because now that Kartana might be able to take it out.
Well, Mandibuzz is actually going to switch for Tapu Fini. Kartana goes for a Smart Strike onto Mimikyu. Shadow Claw coming out into the Tapu Fini as Moonblast goes into the Kartana, as both Tapu Fini heal back up with leftovers. And I think Nightlight's he may have taken a bit more damage in total, but I think that he is in such a better position than Dunga. Smart Strike does pick up a one-hit knockout onto Mimikyu, gets the Beast Boost. Muddy Water comes out, takes Tapu Fini down to the red. Moonblast does get the ever-important special attack drop onto Kartana.
Yeah, unfortunately that Kartana just heavily counters that Mimikyu.
Porygon 2 comes in and gets the special attack boost.
That Mandibuzz surviving and getting to move that taunt onto that Mimikyu really helped there. He might have chose to Swords Dance that turn instead and then maybe be able to take out that Kartana, but without that, he really wasn't able to do anything besides allow two Smart Strikes to essentially two-hit KO that Mimikyu.
Indeed. And, I mean, that Mandibuzz is free to come back in and just get a Tailwind up, get a Taunt off on the P2, preventing Trick Room or Recover. And just able to cause a lot of problems since it did survive that turn.
With that Mimikyu down,
we saw last game was pretty influential in helping Dunga take a pretty clean lead, but this time it's eliminated pretty early. Kartana goes for the Sacred Sword. Tapu Fini goes for a Moonblast into the Porygon 2. Tapu Fini Moonblast the Kartana as Porygon 2 gets at the Trick Room in the red.
that's really good because now that Kartana does move last, so it won't be able to hit anything unless it survives through the first 3 turns. But I think the damage is honestly already done by that Kartana. It's killed one of Dunga's Pokemon, and almost was able to cause that Porygon 2 to faint. And that Tapu Fini is probably in range of a Smart Strike as well.
Indeed. I mean, Kartana has more than done its job, and it easily goes down, gets the Nightlight gets his Snorlax in, and it can easily clean up from here on out.
Yeah, that Trick Room might have been set up again too late.
Ice Beam does pick up the knockout onto Kartana. Tapu Fini goes for a Moonblast, does get the special attack drop, and because of that, Dunga's Tapu Fini hangs on in the red, as Snorlax is the choice for Nightlight.
Unfortunately, Dunga's Tapu Fini does get the special attack drop as well, so it's really not going to be hitting hard at all anymore. And with these 2 Pokemon in red, they probably will both go down.
Yep. As High Horsepower does get does take out the Tapu Fini. Porygon 2 recovers and then gets a special attack drop courtesy of Tapu Fini's Moonblast as Hariyama comes in for Dunga.
Oh man, that Hariyama does have an issue with that Tapu Fini. I don't think Porygon 2 is going to be able to take it out with that special attack drop. So a Moonblast going into that slot would be catastrophic.
Of course, Tapu Fini does protect. Nightlight returns into Porygon 2. Hariyama heavy slams into Tapu Fini, and Porygon 2 thunderbolts into the Tapu Fini. And I think that protect may have just won Nightlight the game.
Wow, yeah, he really did not like that Tapu Fini and didn't want to go for a close combat yet, worrying about a Moonblast coming into the Hariyama slot. Honestly, just a great prediction by Nightlight.
Snorlax does pick up the KO onto Porygon 2 with the return. Just barely hangs on after the close combat as Trick Room ends, and this Hariyama at lower defense and special defense now has to take on the Mandibuzz and the Tapu Fini and the Snorlax. As Moonblast picks up the KO onto Hariyama, and Nightlight wins this best-of-3 exhibition match set.
Yeah, that was just a good game played by Nightlight there. Dunga didn't get his Trick Room set up quick enough, and I think that might have been the reason why, because that Kartana was able to really run rampant for, I'd say, probably the first half of the game.
Yeah, and once he did get the Trick Room up, this last game, Dunga was not really able to capitalize on it. I mean, we saw that he had the tools to defeat Nightlight's team easily, but one or two bad calls here and there ended up costing him the game.
Yeah, he just, at the end, he had a last-ditch effort trying to get rid of that Tapu Fini and its type effectiveness on that Hariyama, but Nightlight predicted that and was able to just basically brush that aside and clinch the game for him.
Of course, things probably could have turned out different if he had targeted the Snorlax, and we mentioned earlier that that Nightlight's Snorlax does not have Protect, unlike Dunga's. And that ultimately, I think Dunga may have been a bit confused as to whether or not the Snorlax had Protect, which unfortunately was a mistake that cost him the game.
Yeah, double targeting that Snorlax with a close combat or any other move definitely would have taken it out and brought that Mandibuzz out, which could be attacked by anything. So, and especially in Trick Room, Dunga could have caused that Mandibuzz to faint and then focus down the Tapu Fini possibly. But in the end, you know, just a really good game played by both players.
Indeed. Well, if you have feedback on this match, please let us know. We're looking for new ways to improve before the actual Clan Wars season starts, and hopefully the next time you see one of these battles, it will be when the actual season starts. See you next time, everyone.
See you next time.